Hello and welcome to the first episode of Chaos in the Paddock. I'm your host, Chiara, and today I have two beautiful women joining me. I have Fleur and I have Claire, who I met on TikTok. Fleur, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, I will. I'll go. I'm Fleur. I am an F1 content creator first, and then through F1 content creation, I got into F1 journalism, and I do now consider myself an F1 journalist. I write covering F1, 2, 3, Formula E, IndyCar, and basically anything I can get my hands on motorsport related. On TikTok, Instagram, and basically every social media, I'm under the handle F1 Lockup. And yeah, I think that's everything about me.
And Claire?
My turn. My name is Claire. I'm French, so sorry in advance for every single mistakes I can make during this podcast. And I am also an F1 content creator and a MotoGP content creator on TikTok and on Instagram under the handle Racing Dolls. And yeah, I chit chat a lot, do a lot of live, do a lot of little series, like question about F1 or MotoGP. And that's it, I guess.
Lovely. I'm actually so happy that both of you joined me today because out of all the content creators, both of you, first of all, pop up on my For You page a lot. For some reason, out of all of us, it's always you two. And of course, during those live sessions, it's always fun to talk to you, and I want everyone to have a fair chance. So you might be seeing these two again very soon, along with our other friends. So to get it on, we're currently in our summer break. How is everyone
Yeah.
feeling?
Lost, destroyed.
Fine.
You're fine because you had MotoGP today, but
Yeah. But I mean, as a McLaren supporter, because I forgot to say that, my team is McLaren. I needed the summer break. They needed the summer break. Everybody needed this summer break. So I'm like, okay, it's time to take a step back, look at F1 and be like, okay, see you in 1 month.
No,
Everybody needed that.
I do actually agree because as a Ferrari fan, I didn't mention that I'm a Ferrari fan. I also needed a summer break, and it's not too bad because you have like IndyCar starting next week or like the end of next
already?
week. Yeah, it starts on like the 16th, 17th of August. So
Oh,
earlier than F1. So, because they had their summer break earlier.
Yeah.
So then that will be back. Plus, we've had the Olympics. I've been watching the tennis. I'm obsessed. So I've had something going on, but I really did need a break for Ferrari. I couldn't keep doing that week on week. I needed a little break, a little breather.
I totally agree though, because obviously I'm also a Ferrari fan, but I have close ties with McLaren and
Yeah.
Mercedes. And the start of the season for Mercedes was obviously difficult, and you would think, oh my goodness, what is happening? But I don't know if I mean, the break is always nice because there's a lot of races this season, but I'm bored. I don't know about both of you, but I've been really, really bored just trying to busy myself, trying to see what's been going on. But what has been quite interesting this break is the development in the driver's market. So I thought it would be a little fun if we talk about our highlights of the season. And I think just out of the blue, let's start with one of the biggest changes to the grid, Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari. What were you
Yeah.
guys doing when this came out?
Claire, do you want to go or should I go?
You can go because I think it's
Okay.
absolutely the same.
I was actually having a shower and one of my friends called me and my phone was on because I have this ongoing joke that every time I'm busy and not sat at my desk ready to make a video, big news happens. And I was like, oh, I'll get ready. And I was like, I really want a shower. So I went to get in the shower and my friend called me and was like, Lewis Hamilton's going to Ferrari. And I jumped out of the shower, got ready and filmed a video about it because I was like, I can't be late to this, and this is insane. So that's what I was doing when Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari was announced.
Actually, for me, I wasn't that much into F1. I mean, I was into F1 as a kid. Then I took a break because I was watching F1 and MotoGP with my dad. And then obviously at some point I moved out of my parents' house and I was like all alone, didn't have any subscription to watch MotoGP or F1. So I took a little break. And when this was announced, my dad sent me a text and was like, "Did you see Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari?" And I was like, "What? No!" And I was like, so I decided to watch the season that I missed. So it was like 2022 and 2023. And get back into F1 really quickly because it was like such a breaking news. I think like, yeah, breaking news is the term. I was like, I need to get back into F1 because 2025 is going to be a fantastic year with Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari. And yeah, this is what get me back into F1 and get me to start content creation, actually. So thank you, Lewis, I guess.
I love that that's how it ended up for you because I actually knew since 8 in the morning. That's the thing. As soon as they said Toto was gonna do a meeting, we got the call saying, "Yep, this is not allowed to leave at this time." So they had an embargo set on it. And there were lots of photos of me in the office just walking back and forth or sitting on the floor in utter disbelief that this even happened. And I couldn't wait to, break the news. I couldn't wait to tell people like it's happening. But I was very sad because I knew that that would be the end of Carlos Sainz. And I mean, how do you guys feel about it? Because I think it's one of the biggest shakeups ever. I actually thought Lewis would end his career with Mercedes. I thought he would be retiring after this season. That was my feeling.
I mean, for me, Lewis for me was like McLaren and Lando Norris or Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. I was like, okay, he moved into Mercedes when Mercedes was not that great. And everyone was like, why are you leaving McLaren to go to Mercedes? Mercedes is not like the top team. Why are you going there? And then he won, obviously, a bunch of championships with them. And I thought he was going to retire with Mercedes. I am also pretty sure he wanted to retire with Mercedes, but obviously Mercedes didn't allow him to have a bunch of over contract and stuff. So he decided to do what's best for him. And I mean, as Sebastian Vettel say, everybody is a Ferrari fan. So when Ferrari asks you, do you want to get in the team? I don't think none of the driver will look at Ferrari and say, no, I don't want to get into Ferrari. What are you talking about? I'm fine with my team. No, it's not going to happen. So I obviously said yes. But I was really surprised. I was pretty sure he was going to retire with Mercedes in like a few years, maybe 2 or 4 years more, and then retire, but didn't happen. Yes, 4.
Four
I
is
don't
a
think he's
lot.
going
That
to retire.
Fleur's laughing.
Oh,
What do you think? Do you think Lewis would have stayed another 4 years with Mercedes?
Not with them the way they were. No, I like a week before the news came out, I actually made a video talking about how I didn't think Carlos was going to stay at Ferrari because of the different driving styles between Charles and Carlos being the opposite meant that they had to compromise car design and stuff like that, and how if Ferrari wanted a championship winning car with Charles, which they obviously did because they are very blatant about how he is the future of that team, they had to pick a driver that was more similar to Charles. So I literally made a video a week before that about being like, I think they're going to replace him, but I have no idea with who. And then the Lewis news came out. So I would say I wasn't surprised on the Ferrari side because I knew that they were probably going to be looking for someone else. But I was a little bit surprised on the Lewis side at first. And then once the details of why he left Mercedes, of them being like, look, there's Kimi Antonelli in the wings, we want to put him in the car, we don't want to give you a long-term contract, then it all made sense. Then I was like, fair enough, he's made a good move, a correct move for his career if he wants to stay in the sport for as long as he seems to.
It's insane to me that that happened, but I think Ferrari is a good shout for Lewis. I'm not sure how the dynamics between Charles and Lewis will be because obviously right now Charles is their top driver. He's the number one. And with Lewis coming in, that's going to change. And Charles has been the number one for quite some time now that I'm not sure how that will be for him. But it's definitely something to look out when we get to watch the first race of the season again.
I also think it'll be interesting because Fred Vasseur has been he doesn't want to pick a first driver until the season's gotten into it and he's a huge advocate for seeing how the drivers perform first before strategy wise and like car design wise you pick a favorite. And obviously the management at Ferrari and Ferrari long term is Charles Leclerc's team, but Lewis Hamilton's Lewis Hamilton, and I think they're gonna be on a very even playing field, especially in 2025. Yes, okay, Charles Leclerc has more knowledge of the car because he's been in that reg car, but I think it will be pretty evenly matched. I think it will be interesting. I don't think they'll be calling team orders a lot. I don't think they'll be picking favorites, especially not in the first like year or like year and a bit. I think it will only be if in 26 they're like up for a championship, then they have to figure out who they like more, basically. But that's kind of where I see it going.
I definitely agree. I think Fred has been cooking something up, and this is just his second season as the Ferrari team principal. And I think the developments he's already achieved, even though there was this slow stump right now, I think we're going to see Ferrari do great things again in the future. And that's what makes me happy, because with Ferrari, you need to have a team principal that embodies everything, because it's so familiar that yet that's so serious that you need someone there to like balance it out and make sure that, yes, everyone can get emotional, but hey, this is business. This is what we need to do to move forward, and this is how we're gonna do it. Like, you need an actual leader who can who can tame everyone around. But I also see, Fleur, that you're wearing your Williams jumper already,
Yeah.
which brings us to my next. Well, this was my personal shock, so I included it. Carlos Sainz going to Williams. When that broke, I didn't think it was gonna break that early. I knew it was gonna happen. Like, that was for me already sure. But it was worse to hear that for me than Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari. Because Carlos Sainz is my guy. And I mean, if we think about Carlos Sainz's performance throughout his years in Formula One, people always say that he's a great midfield driver, which I agree with, because what he did with that Renault, what he did with, the McLaren back in the day was absolutely brilliant. And when he started at Ferrari as well, we can see that he has great strategy, and he does take his time to think about what he does. And sometimes, yes, he gets hot-headed and says, just let me drive, and stops talking. But that's when he usually gets to the win. Do you guys think that Carlos Sainz is a good fit for Williams?
Claire has opinions. I'll go first because I'm quite safe. I think as a duo, it's going to be a very, very strong duo. Obviously, Alex has been with the team for a while now. That car has kind of been built with him in mind. He's a strong driver. He's proven that when the car is capable of it, he can drag that car places it just shouldn't be. And I think he will continue to do that. Do I think Carlos will have some adjusting to a backmarker team again? I do, because we've seen a lot of drivers struggle going from a car that can win races to a car that's like literally fighting for points. And it takes them a while to get used to that. Oh, this car doesn't do exactly what I want it to do. Oh, I have to fight against it. But I think it's a very strong duo. My only concern is the classic, when you have two first drivers, it very rarely ends well. And also the fact that for me, I'm more of an Alex Albon fan than a Carlos Sainz fan, and I really wanted this to now be Alex Albon's team. And now that Carlos is coming, I feel like that isn't gonna happen, you know?
We need
I
like
agree. I agree with that. Like, I think, but this is my opinion. I think Alex Albon is probably one, if not the best driver of the midfield at the moment with Nicole Kemberg. And even though I like Carlos Sainz, he's probably one of the backfielder of like the top 5 team. So I think the both of them are actually evenly matched in terms of skills. When you put them in the same cars, Albon has he has the upper end at the moment because he's been driving the Williams car for quite some time, and as Fleur say, he was able to bring points and in like a really, really bad car during some seasons. So obviously, Carlos, we have to adapt to that. I think he will do it, actually, because the McLaren, when he was driving the McLaren, wasn't as good as this season. And he managed to win and have podium and stuff. So I think he will manage to do it. And I can't wait to see what James Wolf is going to do with this team because the team is looking great. The driver lineup is looking amazing. Probably one of the best driver lineup on the 2025 grid at the moment. And as well say, you have to pick a number one driver at some point. And when the two of them are so heavily matched, it's going to be hard, I think. I would love for Alex to have still the number one spot. He had it when he was against Logan Sargent, but it wasn't a real fight, let's be real. Now, it will have to fight for this number one driver spot. And actually, I'm happy about this because this is not my team. It's not my favorite team. It's not even in my top three, even though I like Williams. So I'm like, okay, a little bit of drama, a little bit of number one, number two driver. This is what I like when it's not about my team. So I can wait for 2025 and see how Carlos will do at Williams. Also, I think the Williams project may be looking great because if Carlos Sainz decided to sign here and not at Alpine or other teams, this is probably because it was his best bet. And I think James Wolf is going places with this team. Can wait to see in 2026 with the new regulation and stuff, what's going to happen with Williams.
And we cannot forget that Carlos and Alex were both Red Bull juniors, I think, weren't they? Alex Albon was also in Red Bull, so he does know how it feels like to, race alongside Max. And that's the same with Carlos when it was still called Toro Rosso back in the day, which they really shouldn't have changed. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting development. I'm going to definitely be sporting some Williams merch in 2025. So I will be swapping my red merchandise for some blue merchandise to support my boy. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see Alex Albon race alongside Carlos Sainz because you're right. He didn't have a fair shot against Logan Sargent because that wasn't really competition. That was, hey, like I just can handle the car better than you can. And Logan Sargent was way, way, way back. But Williams has been very controversial in recent times anyways with how they've been treating Logan Sargent. I mean, this is also in my highlights, so I thought it would be nice to move to that. Remember the race in Australia where Logan Sargent could not race?
Yeah. I think everyone remember this one. I was shocked. Like, that Formula One is a cutthroat sport. It's either you good or you out. Because only 20 drivers, not like football or rugby and stuff, where you have like a lot of players and a lot of different teams. You have only 20 spots. If you're not up there, you are out of it. And the first year, obviously, was his rookie year. So Logan struggled and he had not the greatest car on the grid. So it was normal. And then James Wolf gave him a second shot, like a second year. It was like, this is your second chance. You can take it. I give it to you. And no one was prepared for that. No one was like, oh, he's going to get a second shot, like a second chance. But he got it. And then it was like the second race, the third one. I don't remember. Australia was the third race. I think it was the third.
I feel like it was the second.
The second,
it feels so long ago. Whatever race it was, there we go.
Exactly. But it was at the start of the season, and they literally tell to the world, they were like, okay, we don't believe in Logan Sargent. This is literally like, you just screamed to the world, we have a number two driver, and we don't believe in him at all. Not even to bring point, not even to not crash the car. We do not believe in Logan Sargent. I think that was the biggest mistake of Williams, and Albon didn't score any point this race. And it was like worse because you were like, okay, you did that, all of that for nothing. Because even Alex Albon didn't manage to score points. So you could have let Logan drive the car. And I think it was there that everybody knew that Logan wasn't going to have another year at Williams. It was controversial. It was controversial for sure. I still don't think James Wolf is the worst team principal on the grid. I actually think he's one of the best. Did he treat Logan well this season? not really, but we have seen way worse in Formula One through the years. And that's Formula One. I mean, that's sad when your favorite driver is treated like this, obviously. But that's Formula One. It's bound to happen every few years when you have one driver that is going to be like not really mistreated, but like not treated as a very an important part of the team. And you have to deal with it because it's the sport been like that for years now. So it's part of Formula One, in my opinion.
See, I am going to be quite brutal
Oh
with my
no.
opinion on the matter. No, okay, look, like I'm all for sympathy for drivers and I'm the first to defend my drivers when bad things happen. But I don't know, I was on James Val's side here, guys. I'm so sorry. Like, I know everyone was getting really mad about it, and I get how it can be like really detrimental to how Logan views his season and stuff like that. But I get why, I really, really, truly do understand why he made the decision. And I think that's why I can't hold it against him too much. Because at the end of the day, as a team principal, your job is to make sure your car gets points so you finish higher in the constructors. You've got one chassis. Okay, yes, Alex is the one who damaged the chassis, but you've got one. We've seen this happen before with chassis switching in higher up teams. You have to put that chassis in the most capable hands. And at the end of the day, statistically, that's Alex. And okay, yeah, Alex didn't score points, and I think that made it worse. But I also don't think that Williams that season was capable of scoring points either way, which is why you kind of argue just chuck Logan in it, because either way, you probably weren't going to score points. I think where I get a little bit, well, I don't know. It's where I understand it, I think, is where now that we know James Val's whole Carlos pursuit, we know that from the end of 2023, James Vowles was looking at Carlos and wanted Carlos. And by that point in this season, we knew that Carlos was a free agent. So in my mind, James also was aware that Logan wasn't staying. He already knew that going into this season. He knew that he was getting Carlos or he was getting someone else. I don't even know really why they bothered renewing him for this season, because it has never really seemed like they wanted him there that much. I thought he was going to get dropped after one season, but I wonder if maybe the whole, oh, like you can't really drop a rookie after one season, that's insane, got to them a little bit. But yeah, in my eyes, like I think James Vowles made the right decision with putting Alex in that chassis. Do I think he's treated Logan well as a driver tool for the rest of the season? No. And I praise Toto Wolff and Ao Komatsu a lot for that, because famously Toto Wolff waited until Valtteri Bottas had a contract signed before they signed George, because they wanted to make sure that Valtteri went somewhere. So you can tell when team principals care about their drivers, but from a logical, pragmatic position, I get why Vowles did what he did.
I think that Vowles also sees that Logan Sargent probably really wasn't ready for F1, which is why he didn't try to look at other seats for him within the teams, because Logan Sargent's performance was just not up to par for him to even stay in F1. Do I think he has a chance elsewhere? I definitely think that Logan Sargent could fare better in IndyCar. Maybe he just misses home. I feel like that's something that really affects people as well. I'm not saying he didn't
Yeah.
have fun in F1. I just think the environment is getting to him, because I feel like whenever I'm in the paddock and I see him, yes, he says hi to his fans. Yes, he seems to be in good spirits, but you always get this feeling that, he's genuinely kind of also upset to be there, knowing how the races will go. That doesn't stop him from trying, because you see he has been trying, like in Spa or in Austria. He does try to put in that effort. I just don't think that this car was meant for him. Do I think he would
I
have done
also
better in a different team? I don't know. I think he could have.
I do also think that sometimes it is just like the sad fact that some people just aren't good enough for Formula One. That doesn't mean, and I say this a lot because a lot of my favorite drivers aren't in Formula One, they're in other series. just because you're not good enough for Formula One doesn't mean you aren't some of the highest caliber of racers. Like, I'd argue some of the best IndyCar drivers are better than some of the midfield F1 drivers, you know? Like, you have that overlap in talent. So just because you didn't succeed in Formula One doesn't mean Logan might not move over to IndyCar and do amazingly. It just means that Formula One style of racing, the way the cars are built, the way the cars are handled, isn't for that driver. And I think like that's sometimes what people forget. I think people forget or are reluctant to admit that some drivers just aren't built for Formula One, but can do great things elsewhere. And I would love to see him go to IndyCar because I mean I love my IndyCar, so I'd love to see him there. So
Does that mean we're all flying to the US to watch IndyCar if he gets his seat?
I'm already planning on it. So I'm just hoping
We are.
skyrocket.
I don't know, Claire,
I'm
we
just
will go follow Fleur around and see the talent. Maybe we'll have a conversation with Grosjean.
About IndyCar, I mean, I need to learn the rules first, but yeah, I'm all up for it. Like looking cars going like vroom vroom in circles. I'm fine. I don't know the rules, but I'm fine with it. I
Do
will
we
just
need
like
to know
watch
the
the car.
rules if we know the checkered flag? I think we know that once the checker flag it's done and we see
That's fine.
It's pretty much the same. It's pretty much just cars zooming past, overtaking each other, and then they cross a finish line.
It's just the
So
ovals, isn't it? That's
yeah, but even then, they still have like street circuits and race courses. They just occasionally have an oval. So it's not even that different.
well, this will be such an interesting turn if he does get that seat as well in IndyCar, because there will be quite a few. And I mean, if we think about it, you mentioned, like Fleur, you mentioned that the driving style doesn't always suit a driver, depending on which series they go to. How do we feel about Ollie Berman? Because he obviously has mentioned in numerous interviews, including one that we did, where he said that he feels like he suits the F1 driving style much better. And I mean, we saw that when he first stepped in for Carlos Sainz, when Carlos had to get his appendix removed. And I want to start with Fleur here. Like, Fleur, give us your rundown on this, because we know that Ollie is your man. We know that, you know, you love him to bits and you're here to support him wherever he goes, especially now that he's signed with Haas. What were you doing when he had to step in for Carlos?
It was again another incident of the second I'm busy, big things happen. And it was the first, literally, like I've been so on my schedule of waking up early, getting ready, chilling, like just being ready so that if any news came out, because it was like leading up to like big news happening. And this was the one morning I slept in, and it got to like 10, 11 a.m., I think. And I was like, I was still in bed. And my friend texted me, my like one of my closest friends who I forced to get into Formula One. She texted me going, "Oh my God, have you seen the news?" And I went, "What news?" And she went, "Carlos Sainz has appendicitis." And I go, "What do you mean he has appendicitis?" And she goes, "He's not racing in Jeddah." And I went, I literally like I think I almost cried in that moment, to be so honest. Like I was in shock because I knew that obviously Ollie was there for F2, so I knew that like he's probably going to be stepping in. And then my friend was like, "Oh yeah, if he has appendicitis and can't race, Ollie's going to be reserve driving." And I was like, I literally lost my mind. I literally immediately again got dressed, made a video about it. um I don't know because I've been a fan of Ollie since his F3 career. We can thank Arthur Leclerc for that because I got into the feeder series because I was a Charles Leclerc fan and Arthur Leclerc was racing in F3. So I watched F3 and Ollie Ben was a teammate. He's British, I'm British, he's my age, he lives like half an hour, 40 minutes away from me. I was like, one of us, you know? I was like, oh, he's literally could be in my school, you know? It was a weird moment. Um, so yeah, I've been following him since F3. And yeah, I was really excited when he had such a good F2 season, but I was worried because in the beginning of his second F2 season, he hadn't had the results. And I obviously knew that Haas were looking at him because he'd already announced that he was going to be doing something like 6 FP sessions even before he'd had this debut. So when it was announced that he was going to be racing in Jeddah, I was so nervous and so excited because I was like, if he does badly, that's his chances done, you know?
Yeah.
Like, why would they even continue to look at him? But it was also interesting because not only was he was debuting at my favorite team alongside my favorite driver. So I like literally lost my mind. I mean, they're my dream pairing at Ferrari. Like, I really do hope he gets there one day, alongside Charles. So, oh my God, that race was literally the best race of my life. It was the first race I've not been stressed about Charles because I was more stressed about Ollie. That Charles was just chilling ahead, and I was like, he's fine. He's doing his own thing. I'm watching this other one. And it was the first time like I haven't been focused on Charles in a race. And yeah, no, it was amazing. I genuinely, like, even thinking about it, I could cry. It was it was insane. I lost my mind. And that clip when like he gets out of the car and Lewis hugs him and he's like at 2 heads taller than Lewis. I love it. It's so cute. All the driver parade stuff, knowing that his idols are Charles and Lewis, like, so cute. I love it. Basically, I was very happy. Oh my God, I've yapped.
I think you felt like his dad. Because
I
Yeah.
honestly,
my favorite clips were of David just like I can't breathe. Oh, that's close. I feel like we
that
could have done a
literally
clip of you doing that.
That literally was me. I FaceTimed my friend who's the one who told me the news because I was asleep. I FaceTimed her while I was watching it, and we were both just sat like watching our screens like this, just like, especially like in the end when Lando and Lewis were catching up. I was like,
Oh,
please, please, I need him to finish in the points. I need him to finish in the points. So yeah, no, I had a great time. I think about it frequently. I can't wait till he has a permanent seat, actually.
oh my gosh. Claire, what do you think about Ollie Berman? Do you think he proved himself this season, even with the free practice sessions with Haas?
I think actually yes. Like I don't really watch F2. I watch F2 here and there. I'm not as much as of an F2 fan as Fleur, obviously. But the Jeddah race was impressive. He did have a good car, yes, but he managed to get in the point, and he wasn't even P10. He was P7, I think, if I remember well. So he was like, "Oh my God, this is impressive for first race." I think he only had one FP free practice session, one or two, I don't remember. I think he had one free practice.
He
Oh,
had
during Jeddah, yeah, during Jeddah, he had the one free practice because Carlos was like, or no.
Yeah, because he had free practice 3 and then straight into qualifying
Oh
because it
yeah.
was
Yeah,
qualifying day.
and I think we had a red flag during free practice three. I think the free practice was cut short or something like that, if I remember well. And the qualifying, everybody was stressed because we were like, he didn't even have 1 full hours like of free practice. But anyway, he managed well. I think obviously the Haas car is going to be a little bit slower, even though the Haas car is looking great in this season of 2024, and I hope it will be the same in 2025. But I think it was like the most, um, like everybody was waiting for that to happen. It was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. When will Oli Berman will get a seat in F1, because he did great in Jeddah. He did great during the free practices that he's got with Haas. And yeah, I was like, okay, it seems fine. We will see obviously next year, because we didn't see a full race and a full weekend and then sprint weekend and then everything. But it's looking great. I think he's going to have like a great rookie season. I hope for him actually. I hope for him and for Fleur also. For
I was gonna say, I hope for me.
well-being.
Like, I don't want you guys to fight over this if you're saying you don't want him to have a good season. But to be honest, I think Ollie did really back up his statement saying he thinks he suits the F1 driving style better. And I was very impressed after that race. I was also really nervous because, first of all, Carlos was in surgery, but then he was walking around the paddock. And my instinct was, why the hell are you walking around the paddock? You should be in bed. But then, he obviously is there. And I think it was also really nice for him to, tell Ollie how much he appreciates him stepping in and congratulating him. I thought that was a very nice moment between all of the drivers, giving him like a handshake, giving him a high five. And I think that really boosted his confidence a lot more. And I think we're going to see great things, especially, Claire, you mentioned that Nico Hülkenberg is one of the top midfield drivers right now because of what he can pull through with that Haas. I think Ollie Berman and Nico Hülkenberg should go out for dinner and exchange tips, because I think if Nico can do that, he can help Ollie do that as well. So if Ollie can pull a miracle with, with the Haas, then we can see him move on to a great team, maybe much faster than we think. So that's my thing. I think this is gonna be an interesting season with a rookie who's actually graduating from F2. But how do we feel about his new teammate? How are we feeling about Ocon?
Feels about. Claire, go ahead.
Because obviously we cannot do a podcast talking about the highlights without talking about, the infamous Esteban Ocon, and I don't want to call it Crashgate 2.0, but it kind of is if we're talking Monaco. Claire, you're the one. Go ahead.
Yeah. I love both of them. I used to love Alpine. Not anymore. But I do love Pierre Gasly, and I am an Esteban Ocon defender till my last breath on this earth. This man, this man could do no wrong in my eyes. Okay, maybe Monaco wasn't wrong. Okay, maybe it happened to the best of us. Okay, but I think people are blowing it out of proportion. Like when you listen to people. Obviously, the internet isn't real life, I know, but when you listen to people on TikTok or on Twitter, Esteban Ocon is the devil. Like he is the worst on the grid, worst teammate, worst driver. He will probably eat Holly Behrman during breakfast because, and I'm like, no, that's actually not what's happening. Like for example. Esteban Ocon, I think the stat is Esteban Ocon had 6 teammate crashes, while Pierre Gasly had 8.
Oh, you counted. You counted.
He's watched all the races. She's tallying them up.
Yeah, they have like notes in her phone.
But Esteban Ocon, I think obviously he has his backstories, and I think he know that his place in F1 can disappear in like the blink of an eye, because it already happened once. He already lost his place because somebody else had more money than him, and he know what the feeling is like. So he's not going to let his teammate pass him up, because in Formula One, your biggest enemy is actually your teammate. He's the only one with the same car as yours. So the only one when you can get compared really, because you can compare Nico Hülkenberg and Max Verstappen. Like, what's the point? Obviously, you can compare Oscar Piastri and, I don't know, Zhou Guanyu. Like, one has the best car on the grid currently and the other one has the worst one. You can compare them because the car is not the same. But you can compare 2 teammates. And also, wasn't the solution to bring like an old French team because patriotism and stuff like that, while the 2 drivers despise each other? Like it was a bad idea since day one, and everybody know that. It was like bound to happen at some point. What happened in Monaco was Esteban Ocon's fault 100%, but he paid the price. His race was ruined. He lost some points, and is still ahead of Pierre Gasly in terms of qualifying and stuff like that this year. Maybe he's the best driver, I don't know. And I think it's actually going to be like a good teammate of Ollie Behrman, because I don't think he's going to see Ollie in his first year as like a threat to his Formula One career, because he saw Fernando Alonso as a threat. Obviously, this is Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
You mean? Yeah. Pierre Gasly is his nemesis. He will never let Pierre Gasly pass like overtook him during the race because background stuff and stuff like this. Like, okay. And Checo Perez was also a threat, because it was either him or Checo who will get booted at the end during Force India days to get replaced by Lance Stroll, and he wanted the place, so he had to fight for it. Like the first year while Checo and Esteban were teammates, it was fine, And then it was after that he wasn't fine anymore. Also, he had a good relationship with Daniel Ricciardo, actually. Like, they were fine
Oh yeah.
during one full
For sure.
year. So maybe it's not the worst, maybe it's circumstances. Is he the best teammate on the grid? Obviously not. Is he the worst? No. I saw people on the grid doing way, way worse things than Esteban Ocon to their teammates back in the day. He's not even top three, in my opinion, like in terms of worst teammates. And I actually think they will do well. Also, people need to realize that people on track and off track is not the same. Maybe you don't like about Ocon driving style, and you don't like the way that he's aggressive and he always attack even against his teammates, and that's fine. But off track, Esteban Ocon is always kind to his fan. He responds to DM, wish happy birthday to a lot of fans. He's actually probably one of the kindest driver on the grid to his fan base, and I think that speaks a lot about him as a person, you know. So people need to like separate the two and stop sending hate to the driver and the driver family because you didn't like what he did to your favorite driver once upon a time in the streets of Monaco. I don't see Nicole Campbell fan and Checo Perez fan sending hate to dear Kevin Magnussen, even though it totally ruined their race in Monaco, and it was even worse, in my opinion, than like Esteban and Pierre. This is my take on Esteban Ocon.
From the lovely French Claire.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably this like a very, very similar opinion. I don't really get all the people being like, oh my God, if Esteban hits Ollie, we're gonna have problems. And like, I am an Ollie fan to my core. Like he is going to be my second favorite driver when he joins the grid, you know, like fighting Charles for first, you know? So, but I don't see Ocon in that way. And very similar to what you said, Claire, I don't think he's a threat to Ocon, and Ocon isn't a threat to Ollie because they're in very different stages in their career. And they're not being looked at the same way. Like it feels like as well, I've had this discussion before, they're both in that team for different reasons. Haas have picked out Esteban Ocon to be their like long-term hire. They want him to be the one that moves on to develop the car. If he stays in F1 for long enough and performs well enough, they want him to be that first driver that brings them back or like brings them to the top of the midfield. Ollie is a temporary driver there. Haas is a stepping stone in Ollie getting to like Ferrari if he performs well enough, or him getting to a top team if he performs well enough. And it feels like, I think I had a discussion with Tom about this where he said Esteban Ocon is Ao Komatsu's pick and Ollie Behrman is Ferrari's pick. And obviously the close ties with Haas to Ferrari is why he's there. And yes, of course, Ao believes in Ollie. He wouldn't put a driver he doesn't believe in. Ollie's proved himself worthy of the seat, but he's not going to be there long term. And that's also why I don't think there's going to be as much tension because, like Claire said, a lot of the issues that Esteban's had with teammates has been through this fight or flight response from him of, I could lose my seat. He knows how easy it is to lose his seat. He knows he has to fight tooth or nail, and he knows he doesn't have that financial sponsorship backing that a lot of other drivers do. I mean, he's had to deal with going against Checo Perez, who we know through the fact that he's kept his Red Bull seat, that his sponsorship and his marketing like benefit plays a huge role in him as a driver. We see it with Pierre, who he is a lot of tension with, and then he obviously had to go against Fernando Alonso, and that's kind of like a questionable one in general anyway. We know how Fernando Alonso works with past teammates a lot of the time. So yeah, I think it's a very different situation than Esteban will have been with any of his past teammates. And I mean, Ollie as well, I think I mean, this is just going to sound like I'm bigging him up because I like him, because I'm a fan. But Ollie is a mature driver. You very rarely see him get like properly angry or upset. He comes at things quite logically. So I think if anything, he's looking forward to working with Esteban because Esteban is knowledge and experience. I mean, even in interviews, he said he thinks that he's going to be closest with Esteban on the grid because they'll be teammates. He wants to get to know him. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I think people blowing it up like that suffer a little bit from recency bias because of Monaco. And then obviously because it's not the first time Esteban's had a teammate incident, people get a little bit dramatic sometimes. F1 Twitter, who would ever get dramatic on that? But yeah, so I think sometimes it gets a bit out of control. And also, I think sometimes it's amplified because obviously every driver gets hate, but most of the time, as many haters as a driver has, they have more fans. And it doesn't always feel that way with Esteban. It often feels like so many people hate him and he doesn't have as many like really vocal fans. Like, because you can argue Max and Lewis get the most hate, but they have so many fans that it doesn't matter because anytime one person says, oh, Max is whatever, there are 50 people ready to go, no, Max is the greatest, Max is the best. Whereas it doesn't feel like Esteban has that on the same scale as those drivers, and yet he's getting a huge amount of hate for arguably no good reason.
I mean, I think it's all just a matter of time. I mean, I think Esteban Ocon is a pretty strong driver. I think compared to Pierre Gasly, especially, I think that was this season was the season where I really saw him kind of improve. Obviously, you had the crashes and you have the minor incidents, but I also just think with oh, this is gonna sound really cheesy, but with Esteban, you can really see that he's driving to survive, if that makes any sense.
Oh my
Next
God,
week,
you're
That
gonna
sounds so cheesy. That sounds really cheesy. But even his podium in Monaco last year, I thought that was a brilliant achievement for Esteban. And even Pierre had his podium moment in Spa last year, and I thought that was really emotional considering what he does in Spa every year for his friend Antoine and obviously most recently Delano. So I think we'll just have to wait and see. I think they're gonna fare pretty well. They're both, one of the tallest drivers. I mean, I think Ollie will be the tallest driver in F1 next season. I don't really remember how tall he is, but I think they're gonna get
Esteban
along.
now?
Huh?
Is he taller than Esteban and Alex?
No, Esteban is taller by
I
one
think Esteban
centimeter.
is, yeah, but
He is
they're gonna be the
though.
tallest
Yeah,
pairing.
I was gonna say he's still growing though as well because he's what? He's like only 19, so
We'll see. We'll
But
definitely. I can't wait to see you, Fleur, in your little Haas merch with the flags and the cap and like a
we're
shirt.
side by side.
I need them to release that stuff so I can pre-order it so I can get it.
Me
Oh,
too.
probably soon. Or we can just make our own because I also enjoy doing that. But some honorable mentions for this season, and I'm doing honorable mentions because there's still a lot that will happen, and I don't want to jinx anything, but obviously Lando's first win and Charles winning Monaco was a great highlight. I don't know if we need to get into too much detail about that because it's already like, they were on the podium, they did amazing. Charles is a great qualifier. I think that's where he's strong. And in Monaco, you need an amazing qualifying to even get there. I think, Fleur, you were lucky because you were sitting right there where he stopped his car and got out and you were in tears. Everybody needs to go to your TikTok F1 walk-up to see the clip of her crying and Charles winning. But Lando's first win was also huge for McLaren, especially with their improvements. And I know Claire was really happy. I was in tears. Like I opted out of Miami. Do you know how mad I am that I ended up not going to Miami? I was
Maybe you're the bad luck. Maybe you're a bad luck charm.
I wouldn't
Maybe
say
if you
that.
maybe if you don't go to another race, he'll win again.
Lando usually has good qualifying when I'm there. To be fair, like the first time, that was after Monaco last year. I went to Barcelona and he did qualify P3, I think, during the race. Granted, he was not on the podium, but that was the first steps where we saw the light of McLaren start to shine again. So they're obviously cooking. One Other honorable mention I think we need to say is also Adrian Newey leaving Red Bull. We don't know what he's going to do yet, so we'll just leave that open. If something's announced, I'll definitely get everyone on this podcast. There will be 11 people on here because we need to discuss that. But we also have Andretti's bid not going through to become the 11th team.
That feels
And I
like
wanna,
so long ago.
yeah, that feels like so long ago, but I just want from both of you like one sentence. Do you think F1 should have an 11th team? Why or why not?
Absolutely. It's dumb not to. It's in the regulations that you can have another team. Why wouldn't you? It's only going to provide better racing and more drivers on the grid.
Same. I mean, MotoGP has 11 team, and it's going great. It's fine, and two more drivers, so more chances for people in F2 to like graduate for F2 and become an F1 drivers. More swap at the end of the year. Yeah, I agree with Fleur. I think we should have 11 team in F1.
I totally agree with both of you. The first thing I said was Andretti, like the Andretti family has been in the motorsport scene for years. Like we're talking decades. And the fact that they're not allowed to be in F1 is, in my opinion, very rude. I thought it was horrible. And my heart broke for the whole family when that came out. And I hope that we will see them in the future, even if they have to buy into a team to do it. I would really love for Andretti to get their spot. But until then, they can slay in the other many racing series that they take part in, and they're good. Like they're getting podiums, they're qualifying amazing. Even if they don't finish in the podium, they're in the points. So whatever they're doing right, and they have a plan. So that's amazing. Another thing that seems so long ago that I would love just to retouch on, and I think you might know it, you might not know it, but Hornergate.
Oh my god. It's been like 6 months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was
And
in January.
was it in January? Well, the first rumors came out in January, I would say. Like the
Yeah,
first
at the start.
rumors about certain behavior. We have to be very careful because obviously there's an ongoing trial, so we can only talk about, what's been put out into the world. But how did you guys
I mean,
feel?
in my opinion, what illustrate this kind of thing is, for example, you have currently the Olympics in France, and one of the volleyball player from the Netherlands was convicted, and he had a trial, and he was found guilty of raping a child,
A
and
child?
he's still
A 12-year-old.
yes,
Yeah.
a 12-year-old, yes, and he's
Yeah.
still playing. He's still in the Netherlands team to this day. He's at the Olympics, and I don't know if what happened with Honor was true. I don't know, but the way sports in general and motorsport and F1 treat women as less than men, and I mean even the word is just like it's horrible what I'm going to say, but we're used to it. We know nothing was going to happen. We are like, okay, maybe true, may not be true. He's going to keep his job, and he kept his job. He didn't even get like, during the trial, you need to step out for like the time of the trial, and you need to be out of the team for like 1 year and stuff, and you will get back when you will be like found not guilty if you are not guilty. No, it didn't happen. He kept his job, and he's going to keep his job until he decided he will retire. And this is what illustrates the place of women in motorsport or in the sport like industry or even in the world actually. So this is just sad because everyone was like, that's what's going to happen, and this is what happened.
Yeah, I agree. I think guilty or not, true or not, we obviously don't really know because there was a lot of not really transparency with the whole investigation, with what was true and what was not. We were never really clear on that. But either way, the allegations were made and it was handled horribly
Oh yeah.
from that point. There was no transparency. There was no, oh, while we do this internal investigation, Horner's going to step back until at least the internal investigation's done. There was no, yeah, there was no transparency with F1, and you can argue, okay, well, it's within a team, it's their right to keep it private. But this is something that the precedent that they've set will affect the women in motorsport all over. And I think that's the sad part as well, because as women in motorsport, there are so many more of us. We are a growing entity. We make up almost half of the most sport fans, and we're growing in a professional capacity within the sport as well now. So I think it's hard because I would have liked to believe that we've come a long way from when we were a mostly male dominated sport, and yet incidents like this take away from that and remind us that at the end of the day, if it's down to you or a man in the sport, they're gonna prefer the man in the sport. And okay, it's Christian Horner, it's a team boss, but at the end of the day, your actions, regardless of the position you hold. And you should be held accountable the same way everyone else is. And it just doesn't feel like he was, regardless of what happened, whether it did or did not happen. It just doesn't feel like any of it was handled very well. We still don't really know what happened, and yet everyone's kind of moved on from it, and it's like not talked about at all. And I think, I think, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to put into words. But, and I think as well, the fact that then Adrian Newey left, I think now that we've had more employees leave as well, Jonathan Wheatley notably, now that you've seen more personnel depart from the team, you can't help but wonder if it's connected to Horner's behavior and the disruption that that caused in the team. And it just, one man's ego has managed to prevail over so much. And I would have liked transparency. I would have wanted more honesty from Red Bull, their internal investigation, everything in general, because I think that's what the women in this sport deserve.
I totally agree with both of you. And I think we should definitely think about having a podcast episode of the development of women in motorsport. So that is something to stay tuned to because I think it is a very, very interesting area to follow, especially with all three of us trying to make it into the world of motorsports. And I think we're doing a bloody great job at it. It's just that there's a lot more to be done. And that's not just in motorsport, that's in every other sport as well. That's in every other normal job that there is. So just the fact that this even took place and now that it's forgotten doesn't sit right with me just yet. But we'll see. I mean, it's still an ongoing trial. We never got, confirmation that it's over, that a decision has been made. So hopefully we'll hear about that soon. If not, we're gonna have to go into FBI mode and figure it out for ourselves. But just to move on to the fun side, I wanted to ask both of you who your most improved driver is, who impressed you the most, and who completely disappointed you. Who wants to start?
I can start with my most improved, but I need to think about my
Okay,
disappointed.
give us
Wait.
your most improved.
I think my most improved has to be Oscar Piastri, actually.
Oh,
I've stolen Claire's. I'm going with Oscar Piastri because obviously you can say he hasn't improved that much because last season he was doing great and stuff, and he got a sprint win and stuff. But I think you look at where he started at the beginning of the season in a fast car, it was third fastest at the beginning of the season. And yes, he was good, but he was off the pace of Lando and he really struggled with tire deg. It was ruining his races effectively in the second half. And I think actually, for me, the way he's worked on that, and you can see the results and you can see how he's gotten closer and closer to Lando every single race. And I'm obviously using Lando as the benchmark. And as the cars got better, he's moved with the car as well. He hasn't been left behind by the car getting faster and him still not being able to figure it out. And then obviously he got his first race win. I have no doubt he'll win another race this season, if not multiple this season. And I just think, yeah, I think he's come a long way, even from last season, because even last season he was making mistakes. He wasn't, again, he still struggled with tire deg back then. I just think that jump from just the beginning of this season to where we are now has been a huge jump in performance. And then if you go back from the beginning of his like F1 career to now, it's even bigger. So yeah, he's my most improved.
Claire, do you agree with everything that she said?
I mean, I find another one because she obviously stole my Oscar Piastri moment.
You can also just agree with her.
I agree, but I was thinking, and actually, I would say Nico Hülkenberg.
He was my second too.
That was good. That's
you see? Because let's be real, Nico is P11 in the driver championship, 2 points away from Lance Stroll, and his teammate is P16. So despite a gap between the two of them, he has 22 points, same as Yuki Tsunoda. He managed to outqualify his teammates, I think almost every time. Managed to get the Haas car in Q3. Sometimes, like, you can see him battle. Yeah, this is so impressive. I don't know. I mean, I knew he was a great driver, and obviously the car was the worst one of the bunch, so he couldn't make miracle. But now that the car is probably one, if not the best one of the midfield teams, probably equal with Vicar, I would say. You can see that he's fighting sometimes some Aston Martin, and it's impressive. And he's always calm, always managed to do well. He doesn't have a lot of crash or a lot of like, he doesn't make almost any mistakes. He raced from the start to the end, managed to bring points almost every races. I mean, we had a statistic that was quite shocking. He proved, and I'm sorry, Claire, he proved more points than Charles Leclerc. I think it was like after
over the triple header.
Yeah. Obviously,
trust me, I know.
Charles
had
a lot of he wasn't lucky, but it was still impressive when you compare like Charles Leclerc, who is one of the best drivers on the grid, with a great car, like a top 5 car, and Nico Hülkenberg, who is in the Haas car. It's very impressive. So I would say he is probably the one who improved the most. And also kudos to his team principal, because I think is also why Haas is probably the best midfield team at the moment.
I would have to go with Yuki Tsunoda, as much as that pains me to say, because everyone knows I'm not a Yuki fan. So every time I have to write about him or talk about him, I'm not too keen. But consistently out-qualifying your teammate, finishing in the points, and granted, he still has to learn how to maybe calm down a little bit more and not swear so much on the radio. But I think this is the season that Yuki's really been showing up to show what he's learned over the years. And I think it's been enjoyable watching him grow up. So I think, those three are quite strong, like Nico Hülkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda, and obviously Oscar Piastri, who is now a Grand Prix winner. But who do you guys think didn't serve? I think we might all have the same answer, because or maybe not, because I would have to go with Perez. I'm disappointed.
I have 2 actually.
So Perez
and Fernando Alonso.
Fernando was going to be.
Really?
I also have a really rogue one, but I don't know if I want to say.
You can say it.
No, no. It is one that isn't an obvious one, but
I'm scared.
You both are gonna hit.
Lando?
Yeah, Lando. Can't lie. Like, he hasn't even done badly this season, okay? But like my argument for Lando disappointing me is I've just expected more from him. I think he's proven that he can do really, really well. And I think in the last few races where the car has been there and he's been able to qualify there, he just hasn't been able to turn that into a result. So I don't think he's disappointed in me the most. I think Fernando Alonso's still that for me. But I do think he's disappointed me slightly, especially over the last few rounds where McLaren have been there. I've wanted him to be. I would expect him to have more wins by now, but I also do recognize that some of that have been team calls. I will put that on McLaren as well.
I will agree with you only for Spa-Francorchamps. Like, for me, this was the race when I was like, okay, the start wasn't great, and it's not be the first time. I think it was like the start of the race is probably his biggest issue at the moment. And I agree with you about Spa, but not about the other races. I think Fernando disappointed me most because you all know, as you said, Chiara, you don't really like Yuki. I love Yuki. I don't really like Fernando Alonso, but for me, Fernando Alonso is probably one of the best drivers in Formula One and on the grid currently. And I was disappointed because for the past few races, Lance Stroll kind of outperformed him at some points in qualifying and sometimes in races. And I'm like, you have the same car, you are Fernando Alonso. What is happening to you? I know obviously the Aston Martin is not up to pace with the Mercedes and the like of the McLaren and the Red Bull, but even that, when you are Fernando Alonso and you sign for another 2 years in F1 because you're a red driver, and you know how it's the same as Perez. He signed the contract. I don't remember where did he sign the contract. Fernando signed it in Canada, in Miami. I don't remember.
I think so. I think he announced in Canada.
I think it was Canada. But since then, the race isn't great. And I'm like, what is happening to you, Fernando? You used to fight for podium last year, and now you're fighting for points, even sometimes point singular. And I'm like,
yeah, I think
Checo is the obvious one, like you said, but it's so obvious, like you have to think of somebody else. And yeah, Fernando Alonso disappointed me. He's still a great driver, but the past few races, no.
Yeah, I think for me as well, it's the comparison because I think Lando's disappointed me over the last few races, but I don't think he's disappointed me the most overall. I do think that is Alonso for me because I can understand where Lando's failings are a bit more as well because McLaren's strategy hasn't been there as well. Their strategy has been slightly shocking in some occasions. So for me, Fernando Alonso has gone from clearing his teammate and I think that's the big change for me. Obviously, the car is worse this year, but you look at him last year and how far ahead of Lance he was most races. That hasn't happened this season. And yes, the car is worse, but other than the car not being able to fight for podiums, not much has changed. So yeah, he just hasn't been able to extract the same performance that he could get last season. And I expected him to be a lot higher than he has been this season, basically.
I totally agree with both of you, especially like with Fernando Alonso. I didn't think about that. I mean, granted, I've been writing a lot of Fernando Alonso pieces and he still seems very optimistic. So I think that's why I didn't, put him in there because I think Fernando, even though he may be having a bit of a struggle right now, especially with fighting for points instead of podiums, like you said, I think his data, whatever he says, is still valuable to the team. Whereas I think with Lance Stroll, I think whatever he does is not valuable. His money is valuable to the team. That's my opinion on it. If I write about it, I have to be neutral, but Lance really doesn't do it for me. But I'm most disappointed in Checo because I think he's just running out of excuses now. I think
he ran out of excuses a lot.
He ran out of excuses last season because he started off so strong. Podiums, P2, P3, or like at least P4. You'd want him to finish in the top 5 in that car, but he's not. He's way down, and I don't know, I don't know if Red Bull are really thinking straight in signing him on because I know that they had problems with his contract because they wanted to sign him on for 1 year instead of 2, but he wanted that 2-year contract. I'm pretty sure they gave it to him with very heavy clauses.
I was gonna say, I think that's where all the clauses come in.
I think we're gonna see those clauses be activated. So I'm definitely I think Checo is one to keep an eye on because his contract is going to be vital in the drivers market and potentially, important for Daniel Ricciardo and for Liam Lawson because I don't think Yuki will move up to the Red Bull seat. I think he sadly doesn't have a chance for that, but Daniel does, and that means Liam will have a chance in F1 because Liam, I think, also has a special clause in his contract saying that if he doesn't get a seat by September, he can look elsewhere. So that's definitely going to be the most interesting part of, the silly season for me. But if we take all of the 10 teams, you guys, are we happy with how they are? Or would you be putting drivers somewhere else? Because it's time to kind of mix the grid up. And Fleur, you mentioned that Claire should go first on this one. Claire, now is your opportunity. Convince Fleur and I on your grid.
Just so you know, none of the drivers stay at the team. You say mix it up, girl. I mixed it up.
Oh, we're ready for you. We are so ready for you.
Okay, let's start with Red Bull.
Ooh.
I put Lando Norris.
Nice.
Oh.
And Valtteri Bottas.
What? Wait.
You've got a good
I
number
love
2 driver.
Give it to me. I love it.
And Lando Norris, so Helmut Marko, he just can't stop yapping about Lando because not that much anymore, but he used to yap about Lando a lot. So I want this man to just stop yapping. You want Lando, you have Lando now. Shush. And Valtteri Bottas, he is a great number 2 driver. And as you know, Red Bull is the place for the number 2 driver. So you can go there. Ferrari. This one is something. Daniel Ricciardo.
What?
Daniel Ricciardo is closer to his roots. I mean, the man is Italian. Okay, I want an Italian man as an Italian team. Okay, this is the only Italian on the grid. I'm sorry. Oh yeah. And then George Russell. I don't know. I think he will fit.
This seems to be the clip for TikTok. There we go. That's the clip.
George Russell. He has good strategy, and maybe Ferrari could learn a thing or two. McLaren, I actually think Yuki Tsunoda will be great at McLaren. Also, I want him on a fast car, and I think he will have a fast car with McLaren. Same with the second driver I choose, Alex Albon. Would be fun. And I think Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon could be great. And also McLaren, they don't know how to choose between a number 1 and a number 2 driver, so they have another problem on their hand. Mercedes, Esteban Ocon. This is what dreams are made of, okay?
The way you smiled at the screen, you went Mercedes, Esteban Ocon.
I dare you to say something, okay? I dare you. And Nico Hülkenberg.
I like that.
I like this pairing. I like this lineup, and I want them on fast cars and Mercedes. Aston Martin, and this one has nothing to do with skills, okay? Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz, because I'm pretty sure emerald green will look good on them. The green will look good on them, and that's it.
Statement. You've done it for the fashion statement.
I'm talking about Lewis Hamilton, okay? And Aldi's, I don't think the red suit Carlos Sainz. No. The green will be better. Alpine, Oscar Piastri, just for the joke.
Just for the without agreement on racing.
And Charles Leclerc.
What?
Because you know about bad strategy and you know about bad team principle. He will have both at Alpine. And Also, his fans need to understand that there is worse place
To be.
in the than Ferrari, and Alpine is probably the worst one. So they need to be humbled.
The worst thing is I really like Charles and Oscar as a duo, and I'd really love to see them race together, just not at Alpine, please.
Oh, that could work. No, it could work. They could be, no, it could assert their dominance even more.
Yeah.
It's character development. Think of it like boot camp.
Yeah. And also for the Charles fans, they need to be humbled. Ferrari is so bad. I am an Alpine fan, okay? You need to be humbled. There is worse place on the grid than Ferrari. Then you've got Williams, Pierre Gasly. I mean, he was performing well in the junior team, and Williams is not really a junior team, but it's still a junior team, kinda. So he will get back to a junior team. And also because I think it will be fun with Esteban Ocon being at Mercedes and him being at Williams. So Esteban Ocon will be in the senior team and Pierre Gasly will be in the junior one, just for fun. And also Lance Stroll, he needs to get to a team when money isn't there anymore. So Williams. Haas, Zhou Guanyu, because I think the car is better, obviously, than Stake, and he could score points, and I want Joe to score points. And Checo Perez, so he could crash the car, and it would cost less than when he crashed the Red Bull car. Then you've got the Carb, Fernando Alonso, because he's a rookie, obviously. And Logan Sargent, because if you get outperformed by Fernando Alonso, no one will say anything. Come on, this is Fernando Alonso, okay? You can get outperformed by him. Oh. Finally, Stake Sauber, because you need to sit down and imagine Kevin Magnussen in the Sauber defending the midfield will be like 10 laps away from the number one driver. It will be funnier. And obviously Max Verstappen, because I want to see how he will perform in the worst car on the grid.
I love
that. Is a very interesting. That I need to turn that into a clip in itself. Like this deserves a post on Instagram, to be honest.
I have gone in a very, very different way. In the sense of the F1 drivers, there are only 6 F1 drivers that remain on my grid mix.
Oh, you brought in the rookies.
I brought in the rookies. I almost brought in the IndyCar drivers.
But this plus MotoGP, right?
No one was safe. Look, okay. I'm gonna start with my least favorite teams because actually no, I'll start with the ones that make the most sense. Ferrari, I've of course gone for Charles Leclerc and Ollie Behrman, my dream pairing. This makes sense. This is logical. This is reasonable. For McLaren, they're the only one I've kept the same. That's the only team I've kept the same. Oscar and Lando both remain in their seats because you know what? They slay. However, Mercedes did not survive. Mercedes, both of you are gone. Sorry, babes. You've been replaced by Kimi Antonelli and Paul Aron, and there is a twofold reason to this. First of all, because they are both incredible junior drivers. Second of all, because they were both Mercedes junior drivers. Third of all, because Paul has one-sided beef against Kimi since Kimi has been like up for the F1 seat, and I really want to see them in the same car, and that would be really funny, and I'd enjoy. So that's my Mercedes. My Red Bull, I've kept Max, of course, because I love Max. And then I've put Pepe Marti in the other seat.
Not even Hajar?
No, I play favoritism and I like Pepe Marti more. So there is no logic, statistics, facts behind that. Beside the fact I'd prefer to see, I almost put Arvid Lindblad in that scene. And then I thought that might be a bit far. Okay, what else do we have? Let's go with Williams. I've kept Alex Albon. I think, oh no, I've got one other who I keep. He's the second last F1 driver I kept. And alongside him, I put, this is quite reasonable, Franco Colapinto.
Yeah.
You know, driver. Although in brackets beside it, I have put Luke Browning because he'd be my reserve driver. Because I couldn't decide between him and Franco, so I put him as my reserve. Then I have Aston Martin. And again, no one was safe at Aston Martin.
Oh
Sorry,
no.
Alonso, you're in retirement. Lance Stroll, don't know what happened there. And again, I think I've been quite reasonable here. I've tried to stick to their junior programs as much as possible. So I have, of course, gone with Felipe Drugovich because that man
Finally.
knows patience. That man knows patience like no one else. When he picked that Aston Martin driver program, I don't know what he was doing. And alongside him, Jack Crawford, because I love Jack Crawford. So that's biased. He also joined the Aston Martin junior driver program. But in brackets again, I've got a few reserve drivers here. I put Jess Hawkins because if she had the super license points, I'd want her in that seat because Nico Rosberg said that her times were faster than Felipe's. So slay her. RB, I think this is the most reasonable one I have. This is Liam and Yuki.
Yeah.
Everyone cheers, everyone is happy, everyone liked that. Now we're on to my no, we've got two unhinged ones. This one, my Sauber one is again kind of reasonable based on recent rumors. We have Teo Porcher because the fact that that man is overlooked is criminal, and Gabriel Bortoleto because I love him. And I almost replaced one of the McLaren drivers with Bortoleto, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. So I gave him the seat in my Sauber imaginary grid. And then um, so I have I have Haas and Alpine left, right?
She's
And
laughing.
my Haas is so unhinged because I just ran out of drivers to think of, so I just chucked in two random ones who I love. So they have no connection to Haas whatsoever, so I'm gonna do them last. Alpine, I've gone with Mick Schumacher because I want him back, please.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
am a Mick Schumacher defender until the day I die. That man has never done anything wrong. Put him back in that seat, please. Thank you. Um, and Jack Doohan because
Yeah.
Jack Doohan because Jack Doohan. That's all that needs to be said.
Cough.
But my Haas grid,
I'm
my Haas grid consists of a Elms driver and an IndyCar driver.
Oh, you didn't.
I've put Clement Novalak and Marcus Armstrong in my Haas F1 team because Screaming Meals F1 team sounds great, guys. Let's get it together. Um, yeah, this was so unserious. I've kicked out half the F1 grid. I was not expecting Claire to be as rational as hers was, even though it was irrational.
It was
I wasn't expecting you to keep all the drivers.
I mean,
So
it was
yeah,
stressful.
that is my happy F2. I would have gone with F3 drivers, but I stopped myself grid. You're welcome.
That's where you throw away all of your journalistic integrity. I just want to say.
That's where I throw away like every statistic and result I've ever seen in my life and just go with who are my faves and where do I want them.
But the thing is, like, even though you did that, there's some truth into, your grid as well. I feel like there are a couple of people on both of your grids who could end up actually being there. And with Claire, I think she just worked with the transfer system. Then that's how I would transfer them too. Granted, I would put Theo Pusher in the Sauber as well, but I also would have put Mick in it and maybe Mick. I know Theo is already the reserve driver, I think. I think I would like keep it that way because I know that they want an all German grid. Like for them, like they
Yeah.
want all German pairing because of Audi coming in. I would put Lando in Red Bull. That's how I had it. Funny enough, I would have actually kicked out Charles, put Carlos back into the Ferrari, and I would have brought back Seb Vettel.
That's actually so true. I didn't realize retired drivers were an option, or this would have
I
actually
would
even
have
spawned.
I would have just like threw everything away and put like back the retired drivers. I would have put Daniel in the Mercedes with Kimi Antonelli. Because I have a
Ooh.
little feeling, I had a little feeling recently that maybe Danny would be a very interesting addition to the Mercedes family if he's not going to get that Red Bull seat. So I don't know.
Yeah, he would. The fact that no one else said Clement Novalak and Marcus Armstrong to Haas, guys, that's so obvious. That's basically confirmed.
I would have put two new rookies into the Haas. I would have said, let's put in Zach O'Sullivan in there and let's put in let's put in Hajar in the Haas just to let him get off, his high horse a little bit sometimes, because, he's a
I just
very scary driver to talk to.
I just skipped over Hajar.
I do think he deserves to be in F1.
I do think he deserves it. I just prefer Pepe Marti, sorry. Sorry, Isaac.
But
I
we
have
can
favorites.
definitely think about focusing on the feeder series for next episodes. But sadly, that is all we have time for today because little Claire here has a girls' date and she's looking pretty and ready to go. Thank you both for coming onto this podcast. It's an amazing honor for me to have both of you here because you both really inspired me to, find something where I can put all of my favorite content creators on TikTok. And I think this is the best opportunity for it because we all yap with each other anyways. And I think mixing all of us up in this podcast is going to be very unhinged since we all have different opinions, fun opinions, sometimes very scary. But thank you. And I hope to see you all soon again. And I hope that you still enjoy the rest of the F1 summer break and that we all find something to do. Maybe we'll learn IndyCar together. Maybe we'll take ballet together. I don't know. We'll find something.
You can watch MotoGP.
We'll watch MotoGP with Claire. There we go. We'll learn more about MotoGP.
And then we'll watch IndyCar with me and I'll force you guys to like it.
Same.
I should like it because I am accredited for it. Maybe that is the plan. But thank you. And that was first episode of Chaos in the Paddock.